Hello, members of the Betham family. Here I am, Erev Shabbat, with a little message for you. Looking a little scruffy, as I tend to during the first few days or sometimes first few weeks of the Omer. And as usual, I have a quick communal update, a short piece of Torah, and then for those who want to stay in meditation. The quick communal update is that we are now 4 pretty wonderful days into the experiment of bringing back davening, not only to our campus, which we've been doing outdoors, but indoors into our sanctuary for daily minyan. We had minyanim all 4 days of Chol HaMoed Pesach this week, maxed out at 15 people. I wrote a little bit about the experience actually in the Kol Ha'am article that'll come out in a few weeks, and it was lovely. It's really amazing to be back in that room, which we built in order to be together, to sing together, to pray together, and it's sat rather forlorn for most of the last year. It's just a small baby step, and there's still a lot of suffering out there with this scourge, and a lot of places in our country and in the world that are far from getting on top of it. But right now, we can enjoy the freedoms that we have earned with our, I think, good, socially conscious behavior in our neighborhood, in our city, and enjoy those opportunities to be together in person. If you'd like to come to Daily Minyan, we're going to be doing it every Monday through Friday, not Sunday, but every Monday through Friday indoors in the sanctuary. For now, limiting it to 15 people. The sign-ups are on the Shabbat email that just went out. Look under the Daily Minyan listing. We'd love to have you. And then, of course, we'll continue exploring other opportunities to bring davening and other programming back to campus when and how it is deemed safe. The other thing I wanted to alert you to is that this Tuesday at 5 p.m., I have the great honor and pleasure of being in conversation with our own dear member, Jeffrey Abrams, who's also now the regional director of the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, and he and I will be talking about anti-Semitism and where and how to be aware of it, and how to make sure that our defense of ourselves, of our very people, remains primary in our mind, but doesn't block us, obviously, from seeing the suffering and the needs and the victimization of others. So I hope you'll join myself and Jeff for this conversation this coming Tuesday at 5. That email went out as well. Okay, now the little piece of Dvar Torah. It's not going to be Parsha based. It's going to be Omer based. But let me back up into it. Doesn't it feel so good to be right? Or to at least think that you're right? I mean, that endorphin rush when you win an argument, when you land the doozy of a line that convinces the other, or at least even if it doesn't convince the other, you know the person should be convinced, they're just too stubborn to admit it. There's something in our evolutionary biology that has us thrill at being victorious, using our minds to overpower others' minds, and to emerge a winner in an engagement, any engagement. The question is whether or not that stance is always the right stance in life, and particularly in relationships. In our Western culture and civilization, we are trained to win and wield our minds powerfully and incisively. Whether you're a trial lawyer in the courtroom, you're trying to win a debate around a boardroom table, or convince a staff to do X and not Y, or convince your child, or convince your spouse, or convince your friend. We are trained to use the power of our mind and our ability to articulate and our ability to marshal arguments so that we can get our way. And I suppose that has some merit. There's a lot of progress of modern society that wouldn't happen if there weren't people who are very good at doing just that. There's another way of being. There's wisdom that emerges both from our tradition and certainly from the Eastern tradition that says it's not the power of the mind that life is all about, but the openness and suppleness of your heart and your soul. And particularly when it comes to maintaining relationships of health. I say all this because we are in the midst of the Omer. The Omer is the period of 7 weeks of 7 days in between the second night of Pesach and Shavuot. And the Omer has many different implications in our tradition, but we count up to the moment that we get to Mount Sinai for the holiday of Shavuot. In the ancient world, it was an agricultural counting towards the reaping of the barley harvest. The Omer literally means a sheaf of wheat, a certain measure of wheat. But the Kabbalists, the Kabbalah, has an overlay on the Omer, which I teach from occasionally, and sometimes I use it as a source of my meditations. And they believe that each of the 7 weeks of the Omer represented a different sphira, a different one of God's emanations, God's characters in the world. And then each day of each week is a subset of that emanation. So, for instance, the first of the 7 is chesed, a Hebrew word which we often translate in the vernacular as loving kindness or compassion. In Kabbalah, chesed means something different than that. It means unconditional love. The unconditional love that we hope and pray that God has for us and that we offer back to God and that we offer to each other, that is chesed, not just being empathic, but offering love unconditionally. So the first week of the Omer is focused on chesed, and the first day of each week is focused on chesed. The 5th of the 7 is hod, a Hebrew word which we would also translate in the vernacular as splendor, maybe glory or beauty. But in the Kabbalah, hod means humility, modesty, holding yourself back, keeping your ego in check. They didn't know the word ego, but they knew the concept of you putting yourself first at all times. And therefore, since we are in the 5th day of the first week, the day of the Omer in which we are situated right now is called Hod Shabbat Chesed, the humility of love. And what it asks us to consider, I believe, is whether in our love we are arrogant, certain, bullish, focused in being right, or humble, held back, guarded, protective, less of our individual needs in the moment, and more of the bond that we are trying to preserve. Hod Shabbat Chesed, according to this way of thinking, is how love can be enduring. You can have bursts of love without Hod. It is hard to maintain love with a spouse, with a friend, with a child, with a partner, if you are not exemplifying a good amount of humility, knowing that there is a greater victory than your immediate victory. And that is the victory of the relationship lasting and enduring with health. And so what I want to ask you to do as we are in this day of Hod Shabbat Chesed is think through your day, think through your week, think through the moments that are upcoming in your life. What are the moments in which you're going to be susceptible to not exemplifying Hod Shabbat Chesed, where you know you're going to fight to win, where you know you're going to push with your mind rather than hold with your heart? And what can you do to undo that instinct? What can you do, which in the moment might feel like a loss for you, but is a victory for the greater you and the relationships in your life? What can you do to bring Hod, humble, modest presence, into all of the relationships of chesed and love in your life? It's a challenge. It can't be maintained all the time. It's a worthy aspiration and something that we should bring from this 5th day of the Omer into Shabbat and into the next week and into all of the relationships that matter in our lives. So with that in mind, if you don't want to stay for a meditation, I wish you a Shabbat Shalom and tell you that I love you and I miss you, and I hope that you experience my love of you and of this community as Hod Shabbat Chesed with sufficient doses of modesty and humility as I offer my heart and soul to all of you. And Shabbat Shalom. And if you want to stay for a meditation, I invite you to close your eyes. Take a deep, cleansing, cathartic breath. feel that sweet and heavy descent of your soul and your breath back into your body with the ethereal reuniting with the physical. As you grasp these moments of quiet, of tremendously focused wakefulness, which is also tremendously restorative just for you. This moment is just for you to lean into, to allow yourself to be embraced by you, as odd as that might seem. To allow the wonder of your eyelids blocking out your visual stimuli to help you create this cocoon in which you are safe and protected, where it feels wonderful and nourishing. A destination and a stance which is never that far away. It's always rather easily accessed. But once you're there, you realize how different it is from the other mode, from the mode of regular waking interaction. And in this meditation, we're going to continue on the theme of the Dvar Torah, almost like a mantra. Hod Shabbat Chesed. Humility within love. Modesty within rapture. Humility and modesty in the name of love and ecstasy. Whether you visualize in English, or you can visualize in Hebrew, or both, let those words hover in your mind's eye and then see what comes. When you see almost like a banner in your mind that says, Hod Shabbat Chesed. Humility within love. What is beckoned into and by your consciousness? A memory where you failed to have this stance? A person or relationship that challenges you in this regard? A surge of warmth, recalling moments where you were the exemplar of it? For the moment, don't edit, don't filter, just let them rush in. Images, moments, people, feelings, burgeoning commitments on your part. Just allow it to percolate as your soul steadies itself and perhaps recommits itself to Hod Shabbat Chesed. Hod Shabbat Chesed. The humility within love. The modesty and restraint within exaltation. The slightly less of you, which brings so much more to the relationship itself. Hod Shabbat Chesed. Hod Shebachesed. Hod Shebachesed. Hod Shebachesed. We are humble in our love, and so our love has a chance to survive, to endure, to last. Hod Shebachesed. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. And I say to all of you who are still with me, Shabbat Shalom and Chag Sameach and Moedim L'Simcha, and I miss you and I love you.